Hello, everybody. How are you? Hope that whether you are joining us live on Thursday or watching this by recording at a later date, you're having a fantastic day. I just realized as we got started today that one of the things I've loved about doing these LinkedIn Lives during the shelter-in-place orders during the pandemic is that it helps me remember what day it is because they definitely seem to be just blending together. So I'm always like, all right, we're on topic number 4, so it must be Thursday. I hope that you are doing well wherever you are. And I'm excited to dive into the 4th session here today. And again, this week, what we're doing is going through the 6 sales skills that will help you stand out in 2020 and stand out in a good way. And we're looking at ways, more importantly, how to build those skills. And this again comes from an article that I wrote for the LinkedIn Sales Solutions blog. It was one of the most popular articles last year. And it was really looking at a report that came out, in late 2018 about what employers were looking for in employees, what jobs were hot, and more specifically, what types of skills the employers were looking for. And a lot of these really dovetailed into what is happening in the sales world and the evolution of the sales world from a strictly transactional, mechanistic process to really a human-to-human relationship-driven process. And so that's what we've been talking about this week. We started on Monday talking about oral communication. Tuesday, we looked at people management. Yesterday, we got to dive into using social media as a communications platform, as a tool for engagement. And today, we get to play catch up. So you may have been asking yourself, how are we going to fit 6 skills into 5 days? Maybe. You probably have other things you've been thinking about. But today, we are going to put 2 skills into one session. And so we'll get to play a little bit of catch up. Today, we're going to look at business management and we're going to look at time management. So these are both sets of skills that employers are really looking for right now. And I do think that they are crucial for success in a sales role moving forward. Now, and I forgot to make sure that everybody can see me because we've been having the technical snafus. If you are watching this and if you're live, can you go ahead and just tell me what part of the country or globe or city, if you're in Chicago like I am, where are you right now? Just let me know that you are that you're here, and more importantly, that you can see me. I would appreciate that because we had some problems earlier in the week. And also, I do want to remind you that if you have questions as I'm going through this, or comments, opinions, examples, feel free to throw those into the chat box. That's kind of the reason why I'm doing these LinkedIn Lives versus just a pre-recorded video or something like that, because we have this really cool opportunity to engage with each other. So if you can throw that in there, I would appreciate that. I think there's actually a bit of a delay as well. So I'm just now looking to see if anybody is actually there or if I'm just talking to myself, which, that happens quite a bit. Usually I try to keep that just in my head and not record it on video, but, so it goes. All right. Awesome. Hey, Matt. Awesome. Thanks for being here. Oh, Pat, thanks for coming. Spring Hill, Tennessee. All right. Very cool. So we're all around the country. That's fantastic. So cool. So I know people are there. Let's dive in. So there's a reason that I looked at business management and time management together today. And kind of to put these in context, when we're talking about business management, what we're really talking about is strategic planning, business process improvement, management, right? So kind of like maybe what we think of stereotypical management, looking at what's happening in the business, trying to figure out ways to make it more effective, more efficient, all that kind of good stuff. In time management, you probably have some inkling of that. You've probably tried to manage your time. So that obviously is the ability to get things done, improving how things are done in your life. And again, such an important skill, one that we often don't think about, especially as we go into a more, I don't want to say open work flow, right? I mean, if you think about working from home, like I've worked from home for, 14 years now. And so one of the things that people would always say to me, oh, it's gotta be great, you gotta work from home. And I always say like, yeah, it's fantastic. There's a ton of freedom, but there's also a lot of responsibility. Like I have to manage it. Nobody's saying I've got to do X, Y, and Z during the day, during the week. I have to manage that. And I think that a lot of times we forget with freedom comes responsibility. There might be a larger message there for us as people too. But employers are looking for people that they can just say, hey, get this done. I'm not going to micromanage you. I'm not going to, be on your every email and map you down to the moment of how you're spending your time. You do what you think is best. And those are skills. And the reason why I'm putting business management, which is maybe you can kind of think kind of a macro skill set, think about the organization as a whole, your job as a whole, and then time management, which is really kind of a personal thing, like how do we use each of these moments, is that both of them are really about managing inputs and affecting outputs, right? So if we're thinking about business management, we think about the resources that we have in a business. We think about the employees, the human capital that we have. We think about the software and the tools that we have. If we're in sales, we think about the lead lists. We think about the clients we've already worked with, right? We think about the products and services that we have. Those are the inputs, and we try to create some better outputs, more clients, more business, growth, the success of the enterprise. It's the exact same thing with time management, right? We have inputs, and in fact, we really have one input when we think about time management, and that's our time. That's the 168 hours we have every day. And we're trying to get outputs. We're trying to do something with that time. And so that's why I put these together, because I think that we can look at them similarly, all right, as far as how we view the management of these inputs into outputs. And of course, also, how do we develop some skills around making those better? So I want to talk about 3 ideas that will help you actually build the skill of management for business, the business and the time. And I'm going to talk about 3 things, and we'll talk about 3 ways to improve these 3 things. It's all about the law of threes. If you know anything about comedy writing, and it works for professional development as well. It's always the law of threes. Oh, hey, Adam. Didn't see that you popped up there. Thanks for joining us right here in Chicago. All right, nice and local. Got to represent for Chi-Town. So here's the 3 things I want to suggest are crucial to really maximizing your management ability. Those 3 things are acumen, prioritization, and execution. So when you really think about, again, managing time, managing your business, managing your professional career, and the things that you have to do in that, those are the 3 areas that I think are so critical. So let me talk about what I mean by these. So acumen is this idea, like you've probably heard the term business acumen. What is that? A shorthand way of thinking about business acumen is really just the idea of knowing how things work. Knowing the systems, knowing the processes, but knowing how the business operates, both internally for you and for your prospects. Just having that knowledge, that information. Sometimes this can be very formal. Why do we go to business school? Why do people have MBAs? In some ways, I think having an MBA is kind of funny. I mean, if you have one, more power to you. I think it's great. It's a great way to develop acumen. But the whole concept is like, well, you can sit in a classroom and develop acumen. There's some truth to that. You can also just go do stuff. And if you do it intentionally and you do it while getting some debriefing and such, you can get some pretty good acumen as well. But what acumen does is it really enables you to make decisions better, right? We talked about managing inputs and getting outputs. Acumen allows you to manage that process more effectively. It gives you the knowledge, the basis with which to make more effective decisions. And also, of course, I think it empowers you to make those decisions. I think that, again, unfortunately, we're seeing what happens in this pandemic on a lot of different levels. What happens when people without acumen make decisions, and they're not always the best decisions, and those outputs are not always great. And so when you can go, I've got some information, I've got some knowledge that will help me make a better decision, that is acumen. So the first thing we need to do to manage more effectively is develop that. And again, whether it's you thinking about working with prospects and clients, bringing value to them so that you can be involved in their buying decision, whether that's internal to your team, to your colleagues and your partners in your organization, or whether, again, with time management, it's literally like, what are you doing? You need to actually have an informed and educated perspective to make sure that you're making the best decisions, making them as quickly as possible and effectively as possible. So that's number one, acumen. Number two, prioritization. Prioritization is simply based on the information that you have, that acumen that you developed, deciding where to put your focus. Now, I think this is actually easier to see when the time management piece comes in. I actually, in a lot of ways, think that the idea of time management is incorrect. I don't think you can really manage time because it's such a finite resource. Like there's more things that I want to do than time available, period, right? So it's not about, and management gives us this idea a little bit of like thinking, well, if we just kind of have the right daily planner, if we just kind of manage, how we use our time, we'll get to do everything. And that's not quite it. I think there's maybe a leadership aspect to time. So maybe think about time leadership. By the way, what a good intro to the last skill tomorrow that we'll talk about, which is leadership. But this idea of prioritization, I think, dovetails really well because what I really talk to, like if I'm coaching a salesperson or if I'm helping, let's say a sales leader, when I'm consulting with them and we're helping develop a sales process, what we're really doing is going, what are the best things for this person or this organization to do at any given time? And I shared this with somebody last week. Prioritization is not about doing good things and not doing bad things. That's what we think it is. Good prioritization is doing better things and not doing good things, right? We know, hey, maybe I shouldn't be just like zoning out looking at Facebook. But that's an easy thing to put aside. But a lot of times there's really good stuff that we should be doing, but we get stuck kind of like, well, I'm just going to go ahead and, send a bunch of emails out to these prospects who I've pinged 19 times, right? Or, hey, I'm going to do some more research because I don't want to pick up the phone, whatever it might be. And so what prioritization really is this idea of really honing in on the most important things for us to do. And again, it's easy for us to see that with time management because we only have that 168 hours. But we can see that in our organizations as well. We can see that in our businesses as well. We only have so many resources. And if we can really put the attention on the best use of those resources, we're going to get the best return from them. It's really funny. If you know what the word economics, if you know the word economics, it actually comes from the Greek. And it's really come about managing the household. That's really where the whole idea of economics comes from, managing the ins and outs of just a home, right? And in some ways, you think about that, like, hey, a household doesn't have infinite resources, so they have to decide what's important and focus on them. And it's the same thing in your business. So you have to be able to prioritize. And then execution, that's the third step. In the end, execution is king. Doing something always beats not doing something. I'm going to paraphrase this, which is another way of saying I only kind of remember it, but it's, a good plan executed today is better than a great plan executed tomorrow. And it's so amazing how often people search for a new answer. I mean, this is, hey, how many times do people go to LinkedIn or to HubSpot's blog or Salesforce's blog or LinkedIn's blog? And I'm glad they do because I write for it. But they're looking for the answer. Like, oh, if I just figure out the right cold call approach, if I just figure out the right manager, again, if I just figure out the right time management program, everything will be good. Man, in the end, the answer. Eventually you get to the point where, yes, information is good and it helps tweak things. And yes, I like having a job. I like being able to help, my clients, whether that's an organization that I'm speaking for, or just somebody that I'm working for one-on-one, help them, get some information, get some answers. More often than not, though, I found they have the answers. My job is often to come in and just say, do what you already know how to do, right? So, time management's a great example of this. Have you ever made a great to-do list? You really organized it and you're like, oh, I've got this all mapped out. And then you just don't use it. You don't do it. Something comes up. Or you just get to that one that you really don't want to do that thing. And so you kind of push it down. And right. So much about, and definitely in sales, but in business and in life is just about actually taking action, right? So those are really the three steps that we want to look at to really focus in on your business and go, do I have these skills? Do I have the ability? Do I have the acumen? You may or may not. And you may or may not have it at the level you want. Am I really good at prioritizing where I spend my time, or do I get lost in the weeds? And am I good at execution? Do I just make things happen? Do I deliver, right? So those are the three areas. So how can we build these three things? Let's talk about it in the last few minutes that we have today. So acumen, prioritization, execution. How do we develop actual skills around these? And again, one of the things we're talking about all this week is that it can be challenging to look at these different skill sets because they are the soft skills, because they aren't necessarily quantifiable. And you can't just put them on a spreadsheet and check a box. Oh yeah, I totally have this. But that doesn't mean they're not important. And there are ways that we can build these skills. So how do you build acumen? Well, sorry, I was just reading. Yeah, Matt, I think every solopreneur struggles with time management. By the way, it's not just us as solopreneurs. It's also us as just humans. And solopreneurs don't have a boss telling us what to do. I'm going to talk about some ways to improve that. That's number two. So we'll get there. Let's start with number one. So I was talking about acumen. Studying how do you develop that? Well, the first thing is study. I mean, it sounds super boring, especially for those of us who are salespeople, who are entrepreneurs. You know, I think I was very fortunate that I'm super nerdy, so I don't mind sitting down with a book. But I know a lot of my friends, all my peers aren't just that way, so I get it. But knowledge is important, especially as we move into a sales environment where our customers have information. 20 years ago, a salesperson's job was to show up with the prospectus, with the catalog. That had value because there's no other way for a customer to do anything with that. These days, the customer, they've downloaded your prospectus. They've got the case study. They've got all of your competitors' blogs and websites. And they've got, they've seen demos of everything. If all you have is information, that's not enough. What Acumen does is you're studying, you're getting the information, but then you're going, how can I get some insights from this that I can share with people? So make sure that you're studying your industry, you're studying your company, taking time just to read what's going on. I have a good friend who's in customer success, and he works for a very large tech company. Everybody on this call would know their name. And he's in customer success for them. He works with other very large companies. You would know all of the companies he works with. And he was getting all of these questions from their customers about COVID-19 response, like what should they be doing? What's kind of best practices? And so what he ended up doing is kind of just, and he's a very engaged guy. He put a Google alert up, for COVID-19 and, the industries. And so he started getting these articles, he started reading them, he started sharing them. And he started going, hey, here's why this is interesting. Or if you're in this industry, take a look at this. All of his customers, people he was talking to, loved it. And he started sharing that with the salespeople in their organization. And they loved it because it helped them understand what was happening. They had better prospect and customer conversations, but then they could share that with their customers. They could provide real value. So that's the first thing, is you got to take the time. There are tons of resources out there. Listen to some podcasts. Find a few blogs that really resonate within your industry. Pay attention. The other thing you can do is when you're getting this, be very conscious. I call it debriefing. Read an article or two, or even put half an hour in your schedule in the week to read through some of the stuff and go, okay, I've read all these articles. What does this mean, right? Be thoughtful. I know that's a weird thing to tell salespeople, right? Because salespeople, we just often have execution, which is 3. We'll get to it. But these days, if all you can do is execute, I can replace that. I can replace that with technology. I can't replace the creativity, the insights that a human being looking at some information and maybe looking at it from a particular angle and then sharing that. That's really what acumen is. Again, how can I use this information to help my customers and my prospective customers make better, faster, more effective decisions? So that's number one. Number two, prioritization. And this is really, I think, a key part of time management, because we start looking at so many different things that we can do, especially for those of you who are solopreneurs out there, like Matt. But even in sales, again, a lot of times we're just said, hey, go sell, right? And I've seen this happen so many times, whether you're an individual contributor, sales manager, sales leader, there's often this go sell more. And you're like, Okay, there's so many different things that I could do. Two things to think about. One is the power of writing things down. And so go, hey, here are the 5 or 7 or 10 different areas I could spend my time and attention. Here's the 7 or 10 different things I could do. Get them out of your brain, put them onto a piece of paper. We talked about David Allen in the series on the 5 non-sales authors you should read. We did that a couple weeks ago. All those recordings are up on YouTube. And in fact, I think, because Sean asked me for this, you can go here. We've got all of the past sessions on sales, empathy, posting on LinkedIn, the 5 non-sales authors you should check out. David Allen wrote Getting Things Done. He was a huge proponent of writing things down, getting them out of your brain. But when you have everything that you could do, start to rate them and go 1, 2, 3, 4. What's the order you should act in? And by the way, start with number 1. A great thing that Greg McEwen, who wrote Essentialism, said, the word priorities actually doesn't make sense. You can't have more than 1. What is the priority? Look at that list of all the things you could do and then do that. Another thing that I really liked from David Allen with time management, also business management, I think is really keen here, is the idea of making promises with yourself and then keeping them. Right? Every time you, for example, do a to-do list and then you don't do part of them, you're one part of you is like, why should I believe you in the future when you say you're going to do something? And we kind of erode that trust internally. We also erode that trust if we say, hey team, we're going to work on this. Or, you tell your sales manager, or you tell your colleague, hey, we're going to work on talking to these prospective clients. And then we don't do it. We erode trust. So a big thing, strangely enough, as far as time management and business management, is just saying we're going to do it. Know that there's a difference between a plan and a dream. You might want to, sell X amount way up here, but you're like, hey, we'll definitely do this. Yeah, I'd like to make, I've learned this, for example, with myself. If I have a prospecting chunk of time where I'm talking to prospective clients, I could put 2 hours in a row in to my calendar. I'm not going to do it. I've been in sales for over 2 decades. I'd like to think that I can just sit down and bang out 2 hours with stuff. Nope. But I can do 45 minutes. And so I'd rather put 45 minutes in and then a break and then another 45 minutes, because that gets done. And I can, again, keep that pact with myself. So that's something that can be really important as well. And then the third thing, how do you build your execution skill? Strangely enough, this is not about practice. This is actually about seeing it done, knowing that you can do it. And I was actually just listening to an interview with David Blaine, the guy who does all the stunts, right? Like holding his breath for like a week, or being in a box for a week, or a month. And it's really interesting because one of the things I took, there's some wacky stuff going on for sure, but some of he's just like super straightforward. He's like, if you want to do something, it's always about incrementally developing that skill, right? You don't just hold your breath for 20 minutes. You hold your breath for 3 minutes, and then 4, and then 5. It's the exact same thing with execution, with knowing that you can do something. Some of the best stuff I did in my sales career, as far as learning, was, and I've shared this before, that I started my career selling Cutco knives as a college kid. And we'd have these big push periods. We'd have these contests where you try to sell as much as you could in like 2 weeks. And that really just came to like, can you make a ton of phone calls? Can you, deal with a lot of rejection? Can you set more points than usual? That's the trick, right? More activity leads to more success in that case. And I had some opportunities where I really pushed myself. And once I knew I could do it, that was huge. One of the best things actually I ever did in that realm was I was a cross country runner in high school for 2 years. I am an awful runner, right? My body type, not designed for it, really. I'm short, I'm 5'5", I'm stocky. I don't run. But I ran cross country for 2 years, including my sophomore year. We did a 14-mile workout exercise right before the state championships. I was the last person to finish that, and I was stumbling along, but I knew I could do it. I knew I could push myself to that. That's actually how you build your ability to execute. You know that you can go here, right? And so most of the time you're just right here. That's great. You just keep pushing what here is. Find places where you can push yourself a little bit. Find places where you're like, hey, I'm gonna make more calls than I usually would. I'm going to stay more focused than I usually would. Hey, I'm not good at following a very set schedule for the day. I'm going to create a set schedule, and I'm just going to, for that day, make it happen. You know, Matt, you just talked, you popped up here something about accountability. Absolutely agree. Self-accountability is key, but also finding ways to bring in accountability help in whatever way works for you, whether it's calling a friend, talking to your spouse. I actually run something called the Selling Launchpad, which is specifically for solopreneurs. And every 2 weeks we have a call. It's part coaching and part just accountability. People can say, hey, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. And then they know people are going to ask them in 2 weeks, did you do it? That can be huge. But whatever it takes, there's not one right way of doing this. And I think that that's a mistake that most people think that, oh, there's just one way to create accountability that works for everybody. Not at all. Not at all. You got to do what works for you. Okay. So that's the two things there. Have times where you go heavy, where you try really hard for a very short period of time to let you know that you can do it. It builds a muscle, so to speak. And again, get that accountability. The other thing else, last thing about taking action and execution is learn to just do something. Learn to take the 10-minute rule. I'm going to do this for 10 minutes. I'm going to try something once and then just get yourself started. And either you'll find that you'll often keep doing it, or what happens is you often can iterate on it and get better over time. So those are 3 ways that you can build the management skill, both as far as time management and business management. I always try to keep these 20 minutes and we're, oh my gosh, almost to half an hour here. Thank you so much for sticking around. I know some people had to jump in, jump out. Some of you came late. I appreciate it. I appreciate taking a few minutes out of your day to spend time with me. Thank you to everybody who's watching the recording as well. I will say that I had mentioned the Selling Launchpad, so I wanted to put that link there. If any of you are solopreneurs, entrepreneurs, please feel free to check that out. Happy to have you join one of our calls for free. That's just one of the things that we do. Being a solopreneur can be tough, but also there's a lot of rewards. And one of the things that can be helpful is having a support group. So we have that. Tomorrow, we're going to talk about leadership in sales. So I'm pretty excited how we're going to kind of wrap this up. And then also next week, for all of you who are solopreneurs or who know solopreneurs or who know somebody who's going to become one, because this happened in 2008, the economy went, and a lot of people went out on their own which was great. They took that opportunity to pursue their own course. Next week is all going to be about how to start and grow. Whoop. No, that's wrong. That's right. It's all going to be how to. Hold on a second. That's totally not coming up right. I don't know. All right, forget it. Next week, it's going to be all about how to start and grow your own solo business. So that's kind of what we're going to look at next week. I'm really excited about that. We're going to talk everything about from mindset to literally like what software tools I use to, again, I've run my own thing for about 15 years now. So I've got a couple ideas, a couple things that can help. So if you know anybody who's going out on their own, please share this and share this with your network even this week. Share the recordings. I appreciate it. I appreciate you. And as we get through the next couple of weeks of this sheltering in place, I wish you good health. I wish you to stay as sane as possible. And always remember, be patient, be kind, and take care of one another. All right? Bye.